Hello, hello, hello. Troy Francis with another world-class podcast coming at you from central London. It is Monday, the 7th of October. Yes, incredibly, it is October. We have reached the final quarter of 2019, and I don't know if that fills you with joy in the sense that you have accomplished many of your objectives and things are going fantastically well, or if it fills you with a sense of impending doom because the end of the year is coming and perhaps you don't feel you're quite where you want to be. Well, either way, welcome to the show. I hope to be able to help you out and to inject a little bit of positivity into your thinking regardless. Now, if you can hear some strange background noises, which you probably can, because I think they're going to be quite prominent on this recording, and I apologise for that, that is because I am actually recording this podcast outside of my normal home quarters, outside of the studio in East London, in a store in central London. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm in I won't name the store, but I'm in a very famous technology store by a very famous technology company, and I'm having a piece of equipment repaired. Not that piece of equipment, you dirty bastards, but a piece of computer equipment I'm having repaired at the moment, and I'm just sort of waiting around, and I thought I would take the opportunity to record something for you because otherwise it's going to get late and I'm not going to have the opportunity to do it. So hence the podcast. So, okay, where are we up to? Well, I've been on holiday for a week. So last week, you might have noticed that my content was sort of a little bit, well, I don't know really, because I queued up videos for pretty much every day last week, and there were tweets queued up on Twitter, and there were emails going out and all kinds of things. So maybe, if you follow my stuff closely, you were around last. So this podcast came out on last Monday as well. Maybe you didn't notice any difference, and you thought it was business as usual. But it's possible, if you follow my stuff closely, that you kind of felt that there was a sense that I kind of wasn't really present, even though this stuff was coming out. And if you did pick up on that, apologies for that. But it's correct. I wasn't entirely present because I was on holiday. I was in Ibiza in Spain, which is one of the Balearic Islands. And I'll probably tell you a little bit about that holiday, just because it was kind of fun, and it kind of goes in line with the theme of this podcast, really, which is spreading positivity. So yeah, I was off all of last week. We got back on Thursday night very late, sort of Friday morning. Friday was a bit of a write-off. The incredible jet lag of a 2-hour flight from Spain to the UK, which is there's an hour time difference, really got the better of me. So Friday was a bit of a write-off, and then the weekend I was just sort of dealing with other stuff, really doing some, just generally having a bit of a rest after the holiday before coming back and trying to hit it hard again as of this week. And I have done some work today. I have had a reasonably productive day, but because my iPhone broke, I have had to see to that, and now I'm at this technology store getting another piece of computer equipment repaired also. So yeah, that's kind of got in the way a little bit, but anyway, there you go. I'm back in the saddle, and more content being queued up for this week. So in terms of stuff that I've got coming out, in terms of stuff that is available, you can still get my bundle of 11 books about dating, about the sexual marketplace, about sex, about interacting with girls and all that good stuff. It's called Renegade Dating Blueprints. You can still get that for the ridiculously low sum of $39. The link is in the description, so do click on that and take advantage of that offer, because the whole thing is worth, to be honest, $250. So it is a steal. It's a massive discount, and yeah, I know that you're going to get a ton of value out of it. So there's that. What else is going on? That's kind of about it, really, because, as I said, I've been off last week, but the bundle is good to go, so do get on that. I'm working on the novel, which I say every week, but there will be more news on that soon, I hope. So keep your ears peeled for that. And yeah, apart from that, I've been on Rule Zero a bit. I am uploading more videos this week onto YouTube, so you'll see some new stuff coming out soon. I will probably start doing the live streams very soon. I just need to have a think about the show and how I'm going to sort of configure it. But I'll probably start doing some live streams for you guys. And yeah, it's all going in a good direction. Now, if you've been watching my content recently, you'll see that the emphasis really has been on things like charisma, things like confidence, things like getting over shyness, all of that kind of good stuff. And really, that's the direction that I want to take it in. I think what I like to talk about more than anything is the sort of inner game type stuff, if you like, because and it's a funny area, isn't it? Because inner game gets maligned a little bit because you sort of think, oh, but you know, what about the actionable tactics? What about this and that? But tactics are all very well, but unless you've got the mindset sorted, unless you've got the interior stuff all down, you know, locked down, then even knowing the tactics isn't going to help you. So I'm really concentrating on sort of inner game type stuff, motivation type stuff. I just generally trying to be a bit positive, you know. And yeah, so that brings me into the topic for today, which is positivity, because I think the truth of the matter is we are in a space, you know, the men's self-improvement space, where there has been quite a lot of negativity around for various reasons, partly in terms of some of the content. And I was reading a content creator did a tweet earlier basically saying the red pill is very negative. It's full of negative people talking about negative things. You know, turn away to the light. And, you know, I would disagree with that, because I think what he refers to as red pill, I think is just looking at reality, really. And I think it is important to look at reality squarely in the face and to just accept things for the way that they are. I don't think any of us does ourselves or anybody else any favors by pretending that things are different to how they are, pretending that human nature isn't what it is. But at the same time, does that mean that we have to be negative? Does that mean we have to be miserable all the time? No, of course not. Absolutely not. In fact, the way I see it is that once you've established the kind of the realities, or some of the realities of the world as it is, the way that guys and girls interact, the way that power is distributed in society, the way that people treat each other, certain foibles of human nature. You know, once you've got a pretty good handle on those things, then let it go, man. I mean, you know, work out what you want, work out how best to you know, that you want to live your life, figure out the best way, in your opinion, that you can get there, and then just go for it. And don't be held back by negativity or feeling bad about things. I mean, that's the very last thing you want to be doing. That's ridiculous. And I suppose one of the reasons that all of this came about is that at the weekend, I went to see the film Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. Now, of course, you've got to be living under a rock, really, if you don't know about this movie. But basically, it is the story of the Joker's backstory, if you like, before the Batman narrative arc begins. So this is how this guy becomes the Joker, if you like, and the experiences that leads him to that, and the things that happen to him that explain why he becomes the sort of criminal mastermind that he does in the Batman stories. Now, my understanding, I'm not a massive Batman fan, to be honest. I've seen things like, obviously I've seen the old ones, I've seen things like The Dark Knight, which is a fantastic film, but I'm not a massive fan of the franchise, and I haven't really read the comics or anything like that. But my understanding from reading around the issue a bit is that the director, who's also the director of the Hangover movies, strangely enough, because Joker is very different in tone to those. Yeah, my understanding is that basically he had a pretty free ride in terms of what he wanted to do, because the backstory for the Joker hadn't really been fleshed out in great detail, or at least there were sort of competing versions of it. So the field was fairly clear for him to just go in and do what he wanted to do. And so they made this fantastic film, and really, this film to me is a kind of a recreation of all those great 70s, 80s films by Scorsese and people like that. And it's got elements of so many films that I love in it. I mean, there's a sense of Requiem for a Dream about it. There's a sense of Fight Club about it. There's a little bit of American Psycho. There's, you know, Taxi Driver, obviously, the king of comedy. all of these different little things. It's got a sense of some of the greatest films that have ever been made, really. And for me, I just loved the whole thing. I loved it from the beginning. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I will probably go to see it again very soon, because I think, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a twist, but it's sort of like, I think that there are different things that you can pick up on a second viewing that perhaps I didn't see in the first time around. So, great movie, amazing performance by Joaquin Phoenix, amazingly shot, this great sort of seedy sort of evocation of Gotham, or basically New York City in the early 80s, when it was pre-Giuliani sort of recession, rubbish piling up in the streets, rats and all this kind of thing. I mean, just very grimy, very seedy. The old sort of taxi driver porn theatres around Times Square and 42nd Street. I mean, just an incredibly evocative portrayal of New York City, if you like. Nothing like what it's like now. Of course, very sanitized, Disneyfied, all the rest of it. So I loved all of that. And of course, the character of Joker as well in this film is incredible. I mean, this is really a study of mental illness, I think. It's a study of a guy who gets, and also a guy who gets shat on by society, basically, and who, as a result of that, cracks and ends up doing some terrible things. And although his acts are terrible, there's a sense in the film that, I mean, the filmmakers have been careful to say that they don't consider him a hero. They weren't trying to sort of deify him, but there's a sense in a way that we're kind of rooting for him a little bit, because he's treated so badly by society, and in a way it's one of those things where it's almost like he is the one sane character, or he's the one character who it sort of has a strange, weird kind of integrity in a way, and that makes it very uncomfortable. And I think that's why it's had a lot of negative as well as positive press, because people rightly feel uncomfortable with the sense of identifying with somebody who is basically a maniac killer, But yeah, it's a very troubling film. It's a very dark film. Some would say nihilistic, and actually, when you, I'll try not to do any spoilers here, but when you see it to the end, I mean, he's the Joker is being raised up and almost seen as a hero by other characters within the movie, because he has struck back at society, because he has, and it's an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth type thing. Society's done him wrong, but he's now done wrong in return, and yet he is celebrated for that. And it's a dark vision. Make no mistake about it. There isn't really very much to lighten it, and this is why people like Stefan Molyneux, I see. I haven't watched his video yet, so I will watch his video review of the film, but I saw on Twitter he'd said, this is dark, don't bother watching this film, there's no God in it, there's no light, blah, blah, blah. It's no wonder that trad type people like that are getting their knickers in a twist over it, because it's a dark portrait of the world. And yet, is it wrong? Is it an unrealistic portrait of the world? Well, I would say no. I think I think what we're seeing in the film is an unfortunate guy who is downtrodden and who suffers and who is let down by society, by his family, by his friends. And make no mistake, that kind of thing can happen. People can fall through the cracks in society. There's absolutely no doubt about that, because I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in the lives of people around me. I've seen it with people very close to me, and so on. And sadly, that is the truth. Now, that's not to say that all of human life is dark and depressing and nihilistic. That's clearly not the case either. But, we have to recognize that there are elements of human nature, there are elements of humanity, there are elements of ourselves that are not pleasant, that are not, you might say, morally correct or upstanding, that are, you might say, evil. This exists. And as I say, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to pretend that that's not the case? Are you going to pretend that actually everything is really nice and it's all full of unicorns and happy, smiling, candy floss people? Or are you going to say, okay, I get it, I accept the fact that sometimes, or rather I accept the fact that there is negativity in life, as I also accept the fact that there is great beauty in life as well. And one of the things actually that annoys me about the trad guys, or the sort of purple pill guys, like Stefan Molyneux and others, is that they would seek to flatten out our experience of life. They would rather that broken people like Arthur Fleck in the Joker movie are not seen and not heard. They would rather pretend that there isn't this dark side to humanity, and in doing that, they would sanitize humanity. Now, of course, I am not in any sense condoning any of the actions of a character like Arthur Fleck in Joker. That's absolutely absurd, and I would never, that's completely contrary to my intention here. But in terms of a work of art, there are people who would prefer not to see this kind of thing because they would rather not acknowledge that there is darkness in human life, and in doing that, they would rob the world of, some of the greatest artworks that have ever been created by humanity. And for me, that is just not an acceptable position, and nor is it a helpful or useful position either. More importantly, we need art that examines these darker areas of life. We need art that looks at the more unpalatable elements of our natures and that gives us insights into that. We need it. It's psychologically necessary. This is why we tell stories. This is one of the reasons why we tell stories to each other as human beings. So, having said all of that, and that's all very dark and nihilistic and depressing and all the rest of it, but you should go and see the film because it is absolutely brilliant. It's fantastically done. Where does that leave us? Well, as I say, I think what we have to strive for, nevertheless, is positivity. Now, turning over onto something completely different, as I said at the beginning of the show, I was in Ibiza last week until Friday. So we went, and this was me and my girlfriend, and we left on, when did we go? We went on Sunday. So we had like a Sunday afternoon flight. We got there Sunday evening, checked into our hotel, had a wander around and so on and so forth. And then we had about 4 days of beautiful sunshine, music, drinks, nice food, nice views. I mean, the thing is, Ibiza is, it's a funny place because it's very famous in England and the UK and beyond as well. I mean, I know you American listeners are familiar with Ibiza. It's a very famous party island here in Europe. But it's almost something of a cliche for British people to go to Ibiza, along with some other places, Magaluf. There are places in Greece and so on. But yeah, it's one of those classic holiday places, I suppose, like spring break in Mexico, that people go to. And it can be kind of trashy. Brits go there, they get drunk, they take their shirts off, they shout and swear and have fights and all of that and annoy the Spanish people. So it's got this kind of trashy element to it, but it's also got latterly a very sort of upscale side to it as well. There's a lot of money there. There are a lot of big yachts parked in the harbour at the Ibiza town marina. A lot of conspicuous wealth. A lot of Russians go there. A lot of like Russians and rich Eastern Europeans, some rich Arab people, and so on and so forth. So it's sort of. There's a very sort of VIP table culture there in clubs like Pasha and Ushuaia, things like that. Hotels are all very expensive there. And some actually criticise that because they feel that it's gone too far the other way. Whereas it was once this sort of paradise for ravers to all just go and let their hair down. Now it's become this kind of like, sort of Vegas in Ibiza type thing, which people don't like. Anyway, there is a happy medium to be found between the two of those things, though. And you get some of the best DJs in the world there. Absolutely amazing parties. The clubs are fantastic. The beaches are great. I mean, it's just sort of like we nearly went to Turkey, actually. We were looking at different things that we could do. Looking at different places, and I wasn't really that bothered where we went. We just wanted to get away for some sun. And I didn't even think of Ibiza, to be honest, because I thought it would be kind of more expensive than it was at that time of year. And then we ended up we saw some quite good deals. And we thought, okay, let's do this. And I've been something like 20 times or whatever. She hadn't been at all, but I've been many times, so I know it very well. And every time I go there, I just have such a great time. It's just such a fantastic place, and there's something about the island. I mean, it's beautiful. There are salt mines or salt refinery, I think it is, in the middle of the island. These lakes where they dredge up salt. Incredible beaches, beautiful mountains, and then one of the days we took a boat trip to one of the islands off Ibiza, which is called Formentera. So we took this boat trip over to Formentera. Now it was kind of it was a double-edged sword, really, because it was fantastic. I mean, it was a beautiful day. We got on this boat. I love boats. When I was in Montenegro with Tom Torero earlier this year, we took a boat trip, and there's something fantastic about just getting out onto the sea. And we were on this boat with some other people, and there was white surf behind us as we powered off into the ocean. Incredible. Sitting out there on the deck, very warm, very hot, sun beating down, everything else, and it was great until It's a longer trip than we thought. They said it was going to take us 40 minutes. It took us something like an hour to get to Formentera, we both started feeling a bit seasick. Now, me not as bad as her. So my girlfriend was feeling seasick as hell, and she had a pretty bad time of it. She wasn't actually sick, but she certainly wasn't feeling great on that journey, and that was a bit unfortunate because that sort of took the edge off things a little bit. But once we got to Formentera, incredible. I mean, this island is even more beautiful than Ibiza. I mean, this is and it's unspoiled as well. Now, there are a few very expensive hotels there, and we came upon one very expensive restaurant as well as some nice sort of beachside bars and things. But really, really incredibly unspoiled compared to mainland Ibiza. Just beautiful, beautiful little beaches, sparkling water, clear blue skies, wonderful beaches. I mean, just incredible. We were there looking at these views, and it was just breathtaking. Really, really breathtaking. We took some great photographs, and the light was amazing. And then we came back, and so we got back on the boat, and we planned to try and sit as centrally as we could in the boat. So I laid down on the there was a bit where you could actually lay down in the middle. So I laid down on that, and my girlfriend did as well. I fell asleep. So I was all right. I was kind of asleep for most of it. She didn't, and unfortunately, still didn't feel very well when we got off at the other end. But we stopped off at a bar, and we had some ginger ale, which is good for settling the stomach. And she felt a lot better after that. But both of us agreed after the trip. I mean, in spite of the unfortunate seasickness, which is a problem if you don't have your sea legs, like we obviously don't. The trip was worth it because it was just so beautiful. It was so pretty. Other highlights, later that evening we went to Ibiza town, which is the main capital city of the island. It's a small city, but there's a really beautiful old town area that we walked around. Lots of lovely little restaurants and windy streets. So that was really cool. And on another of the days we went over to San Antonio, which is stereotypically the very trashy part of the island where all of the young British teenagers go. But we went there to look at the sunset because the sunsets from there are absolutely stunning, and it was so beautiful. We sat in Cafe Del Mar, which is the classic famous location for watching the sunset, and we watched the sun going down over the Mediterranean Sea, and we were looking out across the sea. The next land that you would reach would be North Africa, and we watched the beautiful golden sun sinking into the sea, red rays coming off it. Absolutely stunning. And actually, I have to say, guys, I actually felt quite moved watching that sunset. And I've never really... The thing with those beach bars is Cafe Del Mar, they play really beautiful music, so they kind of get you in the mood. But it was just sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I just looked out and I saw the sun setting, and I was thinking, human beings have seen this sun setting for thousands and thousands of years. This is and this is why we all gather together to watch something like a beautiful sunset. It's almost like a spiritual thing. And I have to say, I was feeling actually quite moved watching it and listening to the music and just sitting there having a fantastic time. And then we went and checked out some really tacky bars in the seedy West End area of San Antonio, but that is another story. So I suppose the point I'm making with all of this is that look, I mean, life is not a monolithic thing. There are different aspects to life. There is light and there is shade. There is darkness and there is the fiery, joyful, spark of inspiration and wonder. And, for me, I think you need to appreciate both sides, because I think if you shy away from appreciating both sides, then you are not really experiencing life to the full. And, if you don't experience the downs, then how can you experience the highs? What I'm saying, I suppose, really, to end all of this off, is that I think that in terms of looking at your life, you have to be realistic. You have to be pragmatic. You have to look at the realities in front of you and say, okay, this is how things are. This is what it is. These are the cards I've been dealt. This is how I'm going to go about it. But then beyond that, you don't sit around being a misery sack the whole time. You don't sit around being negative or hating things or hating other people or being aggressive or any of that stuff. You seize the wonder and the beauty as well, because it sure as hell is out there. And if there's one thing that my few days in Ibiza talk reminded me, it's that. I mean, there is some incredible beauty out in the world. There's some incredible wonder. And that coexists with the darkness and despair that we see in a film, it represented in a film like The Joker. And the two things go along together, and that's fine. That's just how it is. So my exhortation to you would be: seek beauty where you can find it, but also be realistic. Don't try to pull the wool over your own eyes, because there's plenty of other people over there around who will try and pull it over them. So there's no point in you trying to pull it over them. Just be realistic, be pragmatic, see things as they are, but be sure to seek out beauty as well. And when you go out into the world, be positive and try to pass positivity on to other people, because, why not? I mean, we're all here for a pretty short time. Be nice to people, smile, have a chat, have a laugh, make a joke, all that kind of good stuff. Pass on positive vibes and they will come back to you. Okay, anyway, enough of that. I hope you enjoyed this rather strange podcast, putting together two rather incongruous things, but I hope it makes some sense. It certainly does to me anyway, and it kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into my last week or so in terms of things that have happened. I hope you liked it. Do give me a shout and let me know what you think. Do subscribe to my daily email list. The link is below. Hit subscribe to my YouTube channel as well for the latest updates on video and podcast. And finally, Renegade Dating Blueprint, 11 of my best books on dating and the sexual marketplace and all that good stuff. You can get them for just $39. Click the link below before the price goes up, because really the whole lot's worth $250, so you are getting an incredible deal. I will leave it there for now. Bye-bye.